examples.
Benny's like, are these a bunch of goals getting scored on me?
Y'all couldn't find a better goalkeeper? Are you sure this is not a goal I'm getting scored on?
No, we wouldn't do that to you.
Unless you ask, and there have been some goalkeepers who've asked.
No, it's fine. We don't have to show those right now. Save that for another day.
So this is in the 38th minute. This is when you were on loan with the Oakland Roots. Shout out to Oakland Roots over in USL. So basically, you're in a high position right here, and it looks like what happens is, Emra, is it Clementa? Is that how you pronounce it? He tries to head the ball back to you, right? Yeah, he tries to head the ball back to you, but unfortunately, it's not a great header, and you have to immediately step forward, stay high, because Frank Gaviria picks it up, and you kind of approach it, but you kind of recognize that you don't have enough time to smother it, so you kind of just hold position there, and then you let like you're saying, you let the ball hit you here, stay high, and make that save with your body. And then what I love about that is this immediate recovery. Look at that right there. The cat, El Gato, getting right back up. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
On first instance, I'm playing a high line, like you said, because it's a long through ball. So I'm waiting to see if there's any chance I could play it. And then trying to, honestly, what I've realized in the couple games I've played, if it's either in Liga MX or USL Championship, is the most important thing that happens in a game, especially for goalkeepers, I think, is the decision making. The decision making is always going to be the most important thing, because at the end of the day, the ball comes at you in less than a second, less than 2 seconds. And honestly, what helped me there was to realize that ball's not going to get to me. But the closer I am to the opposition is going to help me to be able to have more of the goal covered. So that's why as soon as I saw that ball is short, I took my 2 steps forward. And as soon as I realized he's going to hit it, I just spread. But I try to not go down so fast, or, like you said, just try to be quick and hold my ground.
And I think this is exactly what we're talking about. If you go down too soon here and you're too far from the ball,
it
gets over you. If a lot of goalkeepers come flying to smother, you're going to get beat too, because the ball's on his foot, right? So he's kind of maybe hoping you do that as well. So stay big. And now, like we always say, Mike, he has the pressure of people recovering. So he knows he's got to make a decision fast. He didn't bait you. You didn't come flying at him, because he would have passed it under you or by you. You didn't do the X save, as you guys call it, too soon. So he's got nowhere to go. He's got nowhere to go.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, it touches his foot, and by then you're already in a position where he can't see the goal anymore, because you're right in the space right there. And I think and personally, Benny, I think a lot of the reasons a lot of young kids chase for this ball is just kind of they think that that's what they're supposed to do. They're like, I have to pounce on a loose ball. That's what I'm told. I'm supposed to go run at that ball and go down on that ball. Literally no way you're going to get to that ball.
Yeah, and that's the decisions
if he drops early too. Yeah, if you drop down like you're saying, that either that player identifies quicker and he tries to take you on, and you make a PK, and now it's you're caught in no man's land, and you're down on the ground, and you knock him down into PK, and honestly, it seems like it's a goalkeeping error, because like you said, if you do stuff too quick and you don't think about it, and that's when the mistakes come in. Like you said. Plays happen like that. That play was a quick play, Yeah. So you have to make a decision real quick.
Suska, one thing that I love right here, if you're looking at this here, is the simple fact that his chest, Benny, you were talking about with the chest out. Suska, I love the fact that the second that ball is released, that chest that powers out to cover that space, as opposed to trying to throw his hand at the ball like he was talking about, because he knows where it's going.
Yeah, and he's big. Bottom line, you've given him nothing but your body. You're right, and if he breaks your nose, there's surgery for it.
I mean, it might help.
But you know what? With your weight forward and you're leaning into something like this, it never hurts. It's when you don't do it properly, that's when it hurts.
It's worth it at the end of the day. I wish I could say I was already married with kids, so I don't do it anymore, but that's not the case. So I hope I don't get hit this much in the face. Ain't much to lose either way, but
Oh my god! Oh my gosh, man! I before we move on to the next clip right here, Benny, I just want to bring up this part right here. So after the ball's hit, your immediate get up is to find the ball line and scan and see where the danger is right there. And again, that's a situation where a lot of young kids, they go down right there, and the first thing they do is run after that ball, and then the ball just gets lobbed over them. They're done.
Yeah.
They're
No,
done.
it's great stuff.
Yeah. All right. I want to move on. Let's move on to this next clip right here. Boom, boom, boom. Here we go. Okay. So this is, I believe this one right here. This is against El Paso, right?
El Paso.
Okay. Yeah. So this is against El Paso. So Eric Oviedo plays a corner in. This is an interesting header right here that's played up in the air by Andrew Fox. It's towards Gomez over at the post right there. Now he's covered, but you recognize the fact that he's got that space on the near post. Can you hear us?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, I can hear you,
guys?
but if the video is playing, I can't. Yeah.
Oh no, I'm kind of playing it. I'm kind of playing it short and then right there, so we can play it all the way through, kind of. So again, ball plays up, boom, shifted, and now look, holding your position right here on the near post right there. Again, perfect position. You don't go down and dive for this ball because you see that it's coming too fast. That if you had gone down, that ball sneaks underneath you. You stayed high and you let it hit your foot because it's already going there. And again, look at where you're playing it, away from the dangerous space right there. So we can play it again in real time, so kind of everyone can kind of see here.
We've talked about this as well, Mike, is that, you know, I think old school goalkeeping, like old before Benny was born, goalkeeping would have been like, get your hands to the ball, you know, drop down, get your hands to the ball. And how many times do we see that area right at the bottom, to the left of your foot or to the right of your foot? That's a difficult, you know, whether it's a front smother you want to try to do or whatever, you don't want to try to go down with your hand. It's going to take too long. Get your foot there, make the save, you know, but the only way to make that save is if your body shape and positioning is properly, and if your weight of your body is proper.
Yeah. And I like the shift across right here, because you're like, as you recognize this is a weird header right here, but you follow it. And then you see, and then you take a little bit of a step forward to cover that space so that you're in front of post. Because if you had been here and tried to make that save, that's going in. That's going in because you're going negative right there. So you got to get in front of that post right there.
No, it's good positioning for sure. But I think also,
as soon as I realized, as soon as that I saw that he was gonna get to it, I took that step forward also to reduce the space. You know, knowing that. There's a number 18, Azoka. He's kind of diagonally. So if that ball is going towards second post, I know that it's going to most likely hit his body. So that's when I was like, okay, just try to cover that first post and take a step forward, because I realized he was going to get to the ball first. You know, like you said, I just tried to stay high, let the ball hit me. At that point, it's a ball that's literally right outside of your of the box, of the small box. So it's like you have to just be ready for the ball to, you can't really, like you said, you can actually try to see my left hand is trying to go to the ball, but my foot like reacts to it first. But like you said right there, at that point, I think it's just better for the ball to hit you. Just don't try to get your hands quick. Just let the ball hit whatever part of your body it needs to. If it's your foot, if it's your chest, your hand, whatever, let it hit it.
Yeah.
And it'll go somewhere.
By the way, guys, hey, everybody, you were just watching last week's episode with Benny Diaz from Club Tijuana. We are going to start with the one and only Bill Reno in about 1 minute or so, just making sure all the audio is working tight. Bill, how you doing? Can you hear us?
Doing good. Actually, I was really confused there for a second because I saw you pop up on the other screen. I was like, I don't know which one's the real Michael. I was thrown off there.
It's so weird, isn't it? Because you're like, wait a second. You're like, what's going on right here?
Who is it? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right, we will get started in 1 minute. Guys, please put your questions and comments in the comments section. We're going to be talking about GKs to watch in the next coming year or so. Some of them you might know, some of them you may not know. We're also going to be talking about giving feedback and breakdowns in a public forum, how about to do that properly. So here we go. Welcome to Inside the 18. I am Michael Magid, live from Hollywood, California. With me is none of the regulars that you're used to because they're too big time now. One of them is a professional coach, working with first teams, second teams, video coordination. The other one is now a big time broadcaster. She's got production meetings and interviews and all that sort of stuff going on. But that's okay because we've got the one and only, you know him as Everybody Soccer or Let's All Soccer, the one and only founder of all the top goalkeeper rankings in the world out there, and George Washington women's goalkeeper coach / assistant coach, Bill Reno. What's up, dude?
Hey, not much. We need to figure out how to ride their coattails to get up to their level. We're falling behind.
I know, man. It's crazy because I would like to say that the Inside the 18 goalkeeping podcast is a incubator for these wonderful opportunities for people, and then they go off and they leave me in my empty nest just to sit here and revel in all their exploits. But that's okay because hey, someone's got to hold down the ship on the foundation side, right? This grassroots
Absolutely.
level right here. So
yeah. What's the record for guest appearances? This is 3 for me. Am I getting close?
I think the record is Dan Abrahams. I think he's at 7.
Oh, 7. Oh, brutal.
Yeah.
Okay.
He just loves to talk about goalkeepers. You know, it's almost like something sports psychology and goalkeeping kind of go synonymous for some reason.
That's funny. Yeah. Oh, fair enough.
Now, Bill, obviously, but last time you were on the show, you were working with UConn men's, and now you're over at GW. So why don't you kind of catch up the audience here who may not be familiar with your move?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my entire history is kind of zigzagged a little bit back and forth from the men's and women's side. Basically, just want to work with the best goalkeepers in the best environment I can get to. So men's or women's didn't matter to me. The UConn time, that was an odd time just because Ray Reid finished his time there. And so I caught like the last semester. And so when he retired, everything kind of hard reset. None of the coaching staff returned. And so making that next step, as a coach, you're just trying to find what works for you. And so in this process that I've been going through this, I've been really mindful of what I need as a coach and what's good for me. And so talking with Michelle Demko at George Washington as a former national team player and just does a wonderful job with the culture environment there. And then just does a good job of being respectful and giving people responsibility that want it. It was it was kind of impossible to say no to. So I was really thrilled about it. I really loved my time being there. So, the last year or so has been odd as far as movement wise, but I've been really happy and very fortunate with all the opportunities I've had.
I think one of the really cool things about that, Bill, is obviously that you're talking about the fact that, you've kind of gone back and forth between the men and women's game. And there's a lot of coaches out there, not just goalkeeper coaches, that have pretty much predominantly stayed on one side, and do you feel that that's obviously a huge benefit for you, the fact that you've been in both environments?
I'd say from a craft wise, yes. I think from a resume wise, no, to be honest. Usually I'll be totally honest, it's kind of looked down upon to zigzag, or a lot of coaches think that you should just be on one side. For me, I feel the big plus I've had is I'm 6'3", I'm a big guy. So working with goalkeepers who are, 5'4", I can't coach them as if I were in their shoes because that's not fair to them. And so it's really pushed me to think, okay, what are tools that they have that I didn't have and vice versa, and trying to make them successful, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if it's my idea or not. The goalkeepers just need to be successful. And so from craft wise, yeah, but I think resume wise, I think people get a little confused. Like, well, you were on the men's side and you were on the women's side and you've gone back and forth. For me, it's goalkeeping either way. But I think for maybe outside looking in, for coaches, they miss the finer details sometimes, but either way, it worked out.
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, one of the things out there, and I don't understand why it's frowned upon, because the game is the game, and being a teacher is being a teacher. But I think, honestly, one of the really cool things, and for people who are not familiar out there, what Everybody Soccer does is ranks different goalkeepers, around the world in various different ways. And I think if you hadn't been involved on both sides of the game, it would be very difficult for you to do that from a perspective, an actually knowledgeable perspective.
Yeah, totally. I think one of the problems that the women's game runs into right now, aside from like blatant sexism, is people don't know or don't understand like how the lack of investment and resources impacts the on-field performance. So, for example, just very obviously, if we were to do a head count of male goalkeeper coaches versus female, I'm going to guess the ratio is probably like 20-1, 50-1. I mean, it's incredibly lopsided. So how are we coaching women? Well, it's from a male perspective for the most part. So, which isn't fair, obviously. So, yeah, I think going through this, it's been incredibly insightful and eye-opening. It's been years at this point, and over a decade at this point of coaching both men and women. So it's been a long process, but if you're going to do something right, it's going to take time. So yeah, it's been really good for me on that side.
I love one of the really cool things you do, and obviously we're going to talk about it once we start talking about some of these goalkeepers to watch in the coming year. But is that you have literally been able to break down goalkeepers in a very, for lack of a better term, I don't want to say that a lot of the rankings that are out there about goalkeepers are based on information that's misinformation or not a true understanding of the position. But I think because you're actually a coach and a teacher and not just a journalist, I think you come about it from a very different way than a lot of journalists do.
Yeah, inherently rankings are kind of clickbaitish. I won't really totally deny that. So I get that, like, people want to click on rankings and numbers, and they love that sort of stuff. I think the process of me writing over the years is trying to find the middle ground of things that are worthwhile. It's good content, but also it's going to get eyes on it. I think a big goal for me with Everybody Soccer was to help get eyes on goalkeepers that otherwise aren't being seen or noticed. So, I realize there's a lot of ways people can take stabs at the rankings of like, oh, goalkeepers, that's not how it works. You don't just, have a perfect depth chart. And, they're absolutely right. But at the same time, like, how better way do we get eyes on goalkeepers that are in the USL or in college or playing overseas somewhere and they're just off the radar? At some point, you have to kind of compare levels. So it's not a perfect system. I am totally open for criticism on it, but at the same time, like, I want to give a proper platform to goalkeepers that are otherwise being missed.
I mean, look, I think, one of the things about what I like with your rankings, first off, is that, and we've talked about this when you've been on the show before, but the simple fact is that you're not just dismissing somebody based on the level that they're playing at. You're looking at the goalkeeper from a total package in regards to where they are right now and what their projected ceiling is too. Because I've seen you put people in the rankings there and you're like, why is this third division goalkeeper ranked above somebody playing in MLS right now? But there's a method to your madness there, right?
Absolutely. And I think, I don't want to turn this into a dunk on MLS hour or anything, but I think we can look back on a number of times where MLS got it wrong for one reason or another. I think probably the most obvious one is, for me at least, is Tim Milley, of him getting goalkeeper of the year when previously he was in the goalkeeper pool, which, for those that don't know, it was basically this, like, you were hired by the league and you were kind of passed around whenever there was an opening or emergency where they needed a goalkeeper to sit the bench. So he went from being passed on by literally every team in the league to being the best goalkeeper in the league, which is, like, obviously the thing that doesn't connect there was that everyone missed him. They didn't understand, they didn't rate him correctly. So yeah, absolutely. And it's not just MLS, it's every league in the world. We misidentify goalkeepers all the time for whatever reason. There's a million of them. And so, yeah, I'm not afraid to put, them out of order in some sense. I'm not afraid to put a USL keeper over an MLS keeper just because, we have the track history to know that, it happens a fair amount.
I think when you even talking about that, just like talking about the women's game right here, I think one of the biggest issues when it comes to the women's game, and it was something in the national team pool that was a very big concern for a long time. Is that, for instance, like look at like Casey Murphy, who was like playing, I think, at Montpellier before she came over and took the job over at OL Reign. And then obviously she's now at Courage, and obviously, contending to be the number one for the U.S. women's national team. But it was like kind of out of sight, out of mind. Oh, if you go to Europe, you're not going to be on the national team radar on the women's game. So a lot of young women say, oh, I have to stay in NWSL, even if I'm not playing, because I have to hope that I get a chance to start, and then I can get back into the national team fold.
Yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately, the women's game's at us, and this again goes back to the lack of investment, but the road or the route to like becoming a starter professionally is a lot of this, and sometimes you're off the radar, sometimes you're on, which isn't fair. Because a lot of things will get written off of like, oh, you did that in Norway, you did that in Iceland. Well, that doesn't count. That's not here. It's like, well, can we look a little bit past the resume and just see like what they did on the field? And yeah, obviously the NWSL is the best league in the world and other leagues aren't. I get it. But at the same time, we should be able to be smarter and look at goalkeepers playing other places and think, okay, does this translate? Does this cross over? What does and what doesn't? I'd like to think we could be a little bit more thoughtful of that, but sometimes it's just easier to write them off because of the resume. So
yeah, I want to, but before we kind of get into the topic, I do want to talk about this with you, Bill, because there are some goalkeepers that I've seen you rank consistently in your rankings, and guys, please check them out on Everybody Soccer. They're just absolutely. Is it everybodysoccer.com? That's what it is, right?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I couldn't get that on Twitter because someone who tweeted once like 7 years ago has locked it down. So unfortunately, that's not the handle, but that is the URL. Yeah.
But there's some people that have been in those rankings, and I've noticed them consistently over and over again, despite the fact that maybe their careers haven't gone as the way that a lot of other people have expected them to be, and other people's have, and yet you still rank them higher. Is there a specific? Is this because these are specific things that you think our national team, when it comes to the women's side or the men's side, is looking for, or is it just because you personally believe these goalkeepers have attributes that you like more?
Yeah, usually I'd say like 99% it's my bias, which it's my bias, obviously there's that. But I really try not to get caught up into the fanfare. So like Slonia is a great example of, when he first broke on the scene, everyone, was talking about him being on the World Cup roster, and which is ridiculous. And, and just putting him into the top 10 immediately in their whatever mental ranking they have. When that's just not how like things work, and when you get a small sample size, it's easy to extrapolate high or low. And so I there's some keepers I'm high on and have been for many years, but at the same time, eventually, if a goalkeeper doesn't get the opportunity, then their ceiling drops. For whether that's for just like they top out, or which happens a lot, is they realize, oh, I can't go any higher, so that drive drops out. Josh Cohen's probably the best example of that, of kind of seeing how his career has kind of done a little bit of a stepwise function of realizing, oh, hey, I could actually make some ground here. And then when he got kind of landlocked a little bit, you can kind of see his play dip a little bit. But then when there's a pressure on, he always performs, which is cool. So.
Well, you just gave a little sneak preview to one of the goalkeepers we're going to be talking about in Goalkeepers to Watch, which is definitely not a sleeper anymore, because I think everyone is very familiar with Josh Cohen now, with the obviously Maccabi Haifa, Israeli Premier League Player of the Year, which is insane as a goalkeeper. But then obviously now playing in the Champions League group stage against teams like PSG and Juventus, and just recently over at Benfica. We're going to see a lot of Benfica actually highlights in the next few minutes right here. But just, real quickly, before we move on to the topic, I do want to bring up Gaga Slonina. I can never pronounce Gaga's last name properly. Slonina.
Slonina. Yeah.
So Slonina. Okay, so Gaga, if you're listening to this or watching this, I apologize. I know we've been chatting back and forth. I know you've been very busy too. So shout out to you. Obviously, that move to Chelsea, that's going to be massive, for your development and everything like that. So we understand that it's a little bit difficult for you to get on a podcast right now. But that being said, Bill, what if you were talking to Gaga right now? What would be kind of your advice to him now, moving on to Chelsea? And kind of that next step. You were talking about all the fanfare and all that, and obviously that stress and pressure. And shout out to Aiden Brown over at Chicago Fire, doing a great job of making sure that things don't get too crazy over there, and still getting him to focus on development and everything. But what would be your advice to him while he's moving over there?
Well, I would probably start, and this would not be unique to him, just anyone that is kind of in his age bracket is just get off social media. It sucks. It just it weighs you down. There's the positives are a fraction to the negatives, and everyone's allowed to do what they want, I guess, in that sense. So you're welcome to get on it, but the positives are just so low. So that's probably the first thing I would say first and foremost. I don't think he's done anything wrong on it. It's just such a big distraction for someone who has a lot of momentum. But I think in a lot of ways, like, you don't want to. Pete Rose had a good comment one time of when minor leaguers come up to the major league to, sometimes they'll change their swing, and he said to not change your swing because that's what got you there. I think in a lot of ways for him, it's it's not massive changes going forward. It's kind of being just 0.1 more efficient, and that's kind of where, like, for me, the social media is a good way to make someone 0.1% more inefficient, and kind of losing that ground. So as you move up and up and up, it's extremely competitive, and you don't need to rewrite the book. You just need to find what works for you. So I think they've done a great job in Chicago, and Gaga's done a great job for himself to put himself in a good spot. So I don't know what I really could even offer, especially from across the screen. What does anyone offer someone to that? But I think he's on a great track, and he's doing a lot of good things. So yeah.
And one of the reasons I think that we didn't include him in our goalkeepers to watch is because I believe that his breakdowns of him have been kind of done to death, and I think we just need to give Gaga a little time right now. So we're gonna focus on some that you might not be really familiar with, and I think as we move into this topic right here, Bill, we do have one person on our goalkeepers to watch that is playing in an independent club. And I think a lot of times these goalkeepers who may be a little bit older, who are playing in an independent club, maybe in a lower division, kind of get looked over because people say, well, if they're not in an MLS reserve team, there's no potential for them to play in the MLS level or in Europe or anything like that. So why do you explain that that's not true?
Well, unfortunately, I think it is kind of true. I think Josh Cohen's a great example, as we'll get into, like someone who found himself in Champions League, but he couldn't. And not that he didn't have options and offers getting to MLS, but there wasn't quite the same backing that he got domestically as he got abroad. And so, if you're not in an MLS setup, we're kind of this ordained, this is like the place to be. It's tough to get into it. Not impossible, but it's very tough. And so, for me, all this is centered around the craft and the efficiency and the art behind it of, what's happening on the field, as opposed to just mimicking a lot of the fanfare that's kind of found online of this person had so many caps with the U20s, or this person trained with this club overseas. Wow, they must be good. And it's like, well, we should be able to look at the goalkeeper and not know what the crest is, and not know what the club is, and not know their resume, and just think, okay, like, can they actually perform or not in the field? So that's the real litmus test for me.
Yeah, and I think this is a great way to segue into the topic, guys. And today's topic is going to be public breakdowns and giving feedback, in a public environment. Bill, for maybe some parents out there who don't know what we mean by a public breakdown, what do we mean by that?
Well, I'll be honest, I'm not quite. When I saw that, listen, I wasn't quite sure. So you may have to feed me a little bit on this, but I think the idea here is that we're just like breaking down a goalkeeper's. Not so much in a sense, at least how I approach it, not so much in a sense of right and wrong, but of kind of what is their ethos, what is their spirit, what is their intent, how do they want to play, as opposed to did they do it right or wrong. It's not like rock, paper, scissors, where there's always a right option. As the clip I saw from Benny as it was coming in, I think that was a great example of there's different ways to play and whatever fits a keeper. So for me, the breakdown's more about understanding the goalkeeper. I think for some people, when they do breakdowns, they just go over to AmericanSoccerAnalysis.com, go to the expected goals thing and say, oh, their number is positive, their number is negative. That means they're good or bad. For them, it's a lot less thought behind it. So you may have to feed me a little bit on that. I just wanted to, I'm giving my thoughts on it.
No, I think you brought up a really good point right there, and I think that's kind of what I'm kind of getting into, is because a lot of times with these public forums, and especially in an environment where you're talking about working in an academy environment, or where you're working on a college team or anything like that, if you're breaking down a goalkeeper for the rest of the staff or with all the goalkeepers together, there's a certain tact about it that's different than when you're having the private conversation and giving IDP feedback.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I even say like between coaches versus publicly, like, even that's a pretty different conversation. But yeah, and all that. Yeah, I think with the goalkeeper, like that language and that response to them needs to be all geared towards making them better. And if I have a keeper who's making 20 mistakes, I'm not going to hit them with all 20. I'm going to respond to them in a way that's going to get them traction going forward. And that's going to be case by case. But whether it's with a small group of coaches, whether it's publicly, I think the person or the group that you're talking to is really going to dictate the type of language you use. I may talk a little bit more in code with goalkeepers from outside looking in because I know the goalkeepers are going to understand it. But if I'm talking to a coach who doesn't understand goalkeeping, I'm going to use different language and try to simplify it a good bit. So yeah, absolutely.
One thing that I've found is always very difficult for a lot of coaches out there is understanding the environment that they're in regards to parents or anything like that, or players specifically. But I think one thing that a lot of people don't take into consideration too is the level of maturation of the goalkeeper. And I don't even just mean age. I mean, in level of maturation is how long they've been playing the position. Because I see a lot of people, Bill, giving these breakdowns of these 10 and 11-year-olds, who just started, who just came from ASO, and they're giving them the same way as the goalkeeper who's been in that pre-club since they were 6 years old.
Yeah. Youth goalkeeping or goalkeeping in the youth sphere is fascinating to me because I think it's kind of like whoever drives by can like step into the conversation or step into coaching, like it's kind of like all are welcome to a certain extent, for right or wrong. And in that, you're just going to get a lot of different opinions off of it. I definitely understand the idea of wanting to make a goalkeeper better, but at the end of the day, if it's not working, it's not working. So, some goalkeepers, some 10-year-olds want hyper focused information, and they'll compute it, they'll put it into play, and that's great. And some goalkeepers don't, and whichever one's going to be better, it's tough to say at 10. So yeah, I think just being mindful of like who we're talking to and how that's making them, play down the line. Again, if I'm working with someone who's 5'4", I set them up for failure if I teach them to be like me in goal. Like if I say do this and act like you're 6'3" essentially, and they can't do it, then like, I'm setting them up for failure. Now I get, as a coach, I can feel good about myself and say, oh, well, they couldn't do it. They're not good enough. Well, the reality is, I set them up for that failure, which isn't fair.
Yeah. Well, you brought up a really good point in regards to setting them up for failure. And I think, one of the biggest problems out there, I mean, and look, I think you do a great job with Everybody Soccer. So I'm not putting you in this category, but let's just say that there's some forums out there that do these rankings of youth players, and youth teams. And I'm talking about, 2012s, 2011s, 2010s, I mean, it's getting absurd out there. And in your opinion, Bill, as somebody who does this, professionally, should we even be ranking youth players and making this information public?
Yeah, I don't know if how many people noticed. I know a couple did, because I got a little pushback on it, but I didn't. I took a while to write about Sonina and to just cover him because I wanted him to turn 18 personally. For me, as someone who's looking at goalkeepers from a screen, I don't think it's fair for me to really weigh in on children who we all know that like the goalkeeper process is very, very mental. Obviously, there's technical, tactical to it, but in those teen years, it's extremely mental, and how that's going to solidify, I don't know. When you're a 16, 17-year-old, when I'm looking on a screen, I just don't know. That said, it is a little bit of a double-edged sword for me because on one end, I'm not going to do that, but on the other end, U.S. soccer as a whole, we don't do a good job of covering goalkeepers, like we were saying earlier, outside of the kind of ordained MLS, spheres. And on the women's side, I guess, that probably comes to light, outside like the Power 5 conferences is probably a good example. And so could we have, is there a world where like we can write about children playing soccer in a way that like benefits U.S. soccer? Absolutely. I think helping scout and putting players on radars like pays off when it's done correctly. But I think a lot of times, and I realize this is a shot at myself, but I feel like a lot of times rankings are more about getting clicks than actually helping out. Who doesn't want to get a ton of clicks on their, post or whatever. And so I understand that. But
Or it's more for parents to share it with everybody
yeah,
else.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Like,
no, absolutely.
The top
Yeah.
drawer soccer rankings, parents
Yeah.
will be like, well, it's like, this 2010 team is ranked as the third best team in Southern California right now in that age bracket. And it's like, okay, well, but what does that mean exactly? And who's this information important for? And I'm not making a shot at top drawer soccer. I'm just saying, just in general.
Shots fired at top drawer soccer. That's the headline from this. It's coming out. Watch out. Yeah. It's a double-edged sword, right? Because we do need to like scout and cover, but at the same time, like you're absolutely right. Like, what does it do to say at 16 I achieved this? Well, like in 6 months it's gonna be irrelevant. In 2 months it's gonna be irrelevant. Congrats. You can take that and go home if you want. But like, I think ideally a player should see that and a parent should see that and say, okay, what's next? Like, well, how do we get to the next level? But unfortunately, it seems like a lot of people see that and think, okay, my job's done.
Yep.
So.
And that's why, I loved what I just saw. And this is obviously not on the goalkeeping side before we start bringing up some of these highlights here. But, recently DC United, Wayne Rooney, that, they made the debut for the 15-year-old, out there who's got a very bright future. And afterwards, I don't know if you saw the post-game conference where Rooney's like, and they're like, oh, he's just going to start playing for it. And he says, no. He says, I have to protect him. He's 15 years old. He's been playing quality at training and he's of the level. And so, he deserves to get these opportunities. He wouldn't play if he didn't get these up, if he wasn't ready for the level. However, at the same time, you have to balance that with the development cycle. And if you give too much too soon, then it could break down. Now he could regress, bad habits could form, trying to catch up, all of that sort of thing. Do you agree with that? And especially when it comes to goalkeeping, because a lot of people out there, I love what you said about Gaga, is like people throwing him, I'm like, on the fence for World Cup 2022, and nothing against Gaga, but like, the guy's had less than 2 years of professional experience.
Yeah. I don't know if he's even up to a full season yet. He's getting close if he isn't, or maybe he's over it. But either way, no, you're absolutely right. I would like to think optimistically that we would have learned from mistakes in the past. I wrote a way too long article comparing Zach Mcmath to David Ochoa at the start of the season, when Ochoa was obviously coming off the U23s, had a lot of buzz and people wanted him to start. And they obviously went with Mcmath, and just drawing a parallel of like, hey, like Ochoa's in the exact same spot Mcmath was 10 years ago or 10 years later. And they threw Mcmath into the deep end. And then when it didn't work
Philadelphia,
out,
right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And when it didn't work out, they said, okay, you're not good. And then he got shelved for like 5-6 years. And the stunted development that he gets from that, like, doesn't help anyone, obviously, and just kind of ruins his potential. You could argue like what was Mcmath's ceiling from the get-go, that's up for debate, but admittedly he was the hottest goalkeeping prospect for like 3 years in America. And so, I'd like to think we would have learned from some of our mistakes of just throwing, just snowballing so fast and not understanding how the development side works. I think people think, oh, you need to get as many game minutes as possible to be as best as you can. Well, that's not really how that works, although it sounds great. I think people want to treat goalkeeper development like FIFA, the video game, and just think, oh, you just put them in the squad and then they win and then they get better. It's like, that's not really how it works. So, yeah, absolutely. There's a big process to it. And that I think if for people who've been paying attention, you can track back and say, oh, actually these places did it well. And then the places that didn't do it well, you can just see how fast goalkeepers leave, and, they bring in young goalkeepers and they don't go anywhere. So yeah, absolutely. There's a lot to it, and it's not a video game at the end of the day.
So I want to move on to this now. I want to move on to these goalkeepers to watch from your Everybody Soccer rankings.
Cool.
We're going to start with Maccabi Haifa's Josh Cohen. Again, not necessarily a sleeper anymore. I think everyone in the goalkeeping world, at least, is very familiar with Josh Cohen. I've known about Josh Cohen for years. I mean, obviously UC San Diego, and then really, really made a name for himself over at Sac Republic. That's where he had a really phenomenal time, and I think he might have even been a USL Keeper of the Year when he was there. But these opportunities came to him. Obviously, he went to Israel, became Premier League Player of the Year, absolutely insane, and now in group stage of Champions League against the biggest teams in the world. Why is Josh so high in your rankings, and is he the most informed goalkeeper right now? Before we get to his highlights.
Well, he's playing in Champions League, so like that. I mean, I don't it feels weird to feel the need to defend him, but I feel like I do because like he's most likely not going to be on the World Cup roster, which is ridiculous. I just don't understand. You would like to think that we work in this kind of meritocracy sort of setup with the depth chart, but that's just not the case. I mean, like he's done everything that he could, and now like you may say, well, the Israeli Premier League's not that great, and like I don't think that's completely out of bounds. But again, looking back to like what he can do in goal, is he the best goalkeeper in the world? No, obviously not. But he's playing at an extremely high level that our other goalkeepers are not. So I just don't know how to go around it. It's not. I didn't decide for him to be good. I didn't decide for him to go to Champions League. It's like he was good enough to do it. So it is frustrating to see someone put in all this work and effort and get to this level and then just not be able to get in. So,
Bill, as we're kind of getting to this highlight, and I want to show this highlight first because I want to show some of the qualities that we're talking about right here. So this is in the 30th minute. The ball is kind of played deep to Cohen with a high position. He takes like a little touch outside the 18, simple prep touch. When he sees the chase coming, what I love about him right here, and I just want to back it up real quick before we see that here. So let's see if I can get it farther back here. Let's see if we can get it. Yeah, right here. So here. Touch, drops back to create depth, to allow himself the time and the power to be able to play that longer ball. I can't tell you, even at the highest levels, Bill, how many goalkeepers don't drop back to create that depth. They just try to play that ball immediately. And because of that, they have no power behind it. They mishit the ball. The chase has time to come onto the ball, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, this next comment is truly a compliment. I think people could take it incorrectly, but Cohen is the great example for me. He doesn't know quite what he's great or bad at. He just plays naturally. And you can tell how natural this is. Like, this is easy setup. Like, he's not over analyzing the play. He's like, I'm just going to play this because it makes sense for him. Even the setup, you don't quite know if it's going right or left footed, so it's just, you could see that him hitting that on his right, just the way he opens up. But it's all very natural. You want the goalkeeper in goal who isn't overthinking. It just all comes very natural. So wonderful. Yeah. Simple play there.
Yeah. So now I want to show this. So now I want to show kind of another moment right here. And again, I think what we're really talking about with Josh is the GKIQ, and it's just so massive with him. So this is a corner kick that's played, and it's an outswinging towards the near post. Josh recognizes it's dropping, and he approaches. Despite the challenge, he stays focused on the ball and still holds on the ball clean. I even at the pro level, that ball's boxed so many times. Me, I'm getting clobbered there and trying to box it and probably swatting at the ball like a fly.
Yeah. I don't know. You may struggle on getting up there, but yeah, it's funny how kind of old school Cohen is. He definitely has a lot of kind of 90s vibe to him, and this is like an example of and this one's not a ton of pressure. Admittedly, I think you'd probably see some more keepers hold this. I get it, but at the same time, he is very old school in that sense of controlling his box. And again, it's fluid, it's natural for him. He doesn't overthink it.
Well, what I like right there is because that's an open space right there. And so many goalkeepers now are being taught to drop back on line and react, but that's an open space there, and it's a direct, and the ball is dropping towards the near post, which means that it's not really a dangerous ball yet. So he has space to come in and attack that ball. Again, it's easier said than done. I would be a disaster here, but at this level, that's what you kind of want to see. And if you're talking about playing against teams like a PSG or Juventus or anything like that, any type of possession is going to be so beneficial to you because it's a less scoring opportunity for them. So.
Yeah, it's a big mind game of like to send. That's not a real driven ball, but it's not a looping ball either. I mean, it's kind of in the middle ground there, and like catches with ease. Like the opposition knows that now. So like, yeah. Absolutely.
I want to throw this question up here before we move on to another one, and this is from Jake Davis over at Houston Dynamo, and he goes,
Jake,
"How do you? What's up, Jake Davis?
Is he with the Dynamo? I thought
he is.
I
he's
thought
at Houston Dynamo. Yeah, he's at Houston Dynamo now.
I thought he was somewhere else. Excuse me. Sorry, Jake.
He actually posted a really cool cognitive piece over on the Union last week. So shout out to Jake for that. I think we featured it on our Instagram as well too. Shout out to you, Jake. We're gonna have you on again soon. He goes, how do you rank number 2 backup goalkeepers? Might be a bigger club / school, but not playing. How does this ranking line up against maybe a lesser league or conference? You might not be able to see them as much, but are in a top environment versus you see more of them playing for a lesser team.
Yeah, that's a great question. First of all, Jake, sorry about the not knowing the move to the Dynamo. That's awesome. Congrats on that. Happy to see it. I think last I heard you were at Hartford, so that's awesome. Yeah, it's a good question. And again, like doing it over a screen, like there's a lot of things you're going to miss. And so as much as I can, I try to connect with coaches somewhere along the way of understanding kind of the behind the scenes stuff. Ultimately, you're going to get largely not just me but from anyone, you're going to largely rate it on what you do on the field. So if you haven't seen minutes, like it's very tough to do it. And if you've only seen one game where you either played terrible or played great, is that really fair? Well, probably not. So yeah, absolutely. It's a very good question. I think for me, like doing this, it's like, does the number 2, what is the ceiling? What does the path look like that's going forward? Some number 2s just don't have a shot because they're going to get, at a school, they're getting outplayed by someone who's a younger year than them, and they aren't going to get a shot unless they transfer out. So it's tough, and you obviously never get it right. You never have a crystal ball, but ultimately, like, they've got to perform on the field. I think getting some inside knowledge of just knowing, because definitely coaches talk, and goalkeeper coaches like being proud of their goalkeepers, and it's not hard to find out which goalkeeper coaches like their backups or not, to be totally honest. And so, yeah, it's very tough. That's a very good question. But I, in some sense, a group consensus is probably the route to go on that as much as you can.
I want to move on to this final clip right here of Josh Cohen before we kind of wrap up on him right here. And this is kind of in the 84th minute. The ball is kind of at the edge of the 18. It's a square ball that's played across the top of the 18 center. Josh kind of recognizes that. Great drop step shift from right here, boom. But it's very patient, very controlled. And then a shot's hit back across in traffic. Despite this obstructed view right here, look at that forward movement right there in front of post. I think that right there is world class, because a lot of goalkeepers would be moving laterally. They'd be so deep that any sort of chance right there of their shoulder going negative and that ball's in the net. But because he's a little bit higher because of that obstructed view, he's composed. He's able to get down low and make a nice play on that ball. I want to play it again so everyone can kind of see.
Yeah. I mean, this is you can kind of tell he doesn't like how much fluidity there. He does have a little bit of a set position into it, but like this is a very non-American approach of like, yeah, I think a lot of coaches would say like, oh, get set in, get set quick, get your body weight even, but he kind of fluidly like matches the rhythm of the play to himself. I try to tell with my younger goalkeepers of thinking, if they've played an instrument, and especially in an orchestra, to thinking about their rhythm in line with the conductor. So if you just start playing your trombone, not with the orchestra, you're going to sound like an idiot, obviously. So here he's in rhythm with like the conductor, which is the shot. So it's a wonderful, very fluid style that I think this is probably more of a European edition. I don't think he picked this up in America, but I could be wrong. But yeah, it's a really nice play there.
So question for you, Bill, as we move on from Josh Cohen right here, again, form is important. Where you're playing, is important. Obviously, Champions League group stage, you really can't get any higher than that. That's literally, and not just Champions League group stage, he's literally in the group of death with some of the top clubs ever in history. He's playing against guys like Mbappe and Leo Messi during this group stage. So, if Greg Berhalter wants to know what this guy's made of at the highest levels, I mean, there's really, you could argue it's going to be a higher level than in the World Cup. So, like, I don't know what else to say. What do you see with Josh moving forward? If the national team's out of the picture, do you see him moving to a bigger league?
Ideally we wouldn't be in the spot where we don't know how he would mesh with the national team. So like that's another can of worms that we can get into later or another time. But I think the question comes down to him. Like if he likes being there and he feels like that's a good environment, then like keep playing. If he wants to go for a higher challenge, then he'll go for a higher challenge. Josh Cohen's always been the type of guy who bets on himself. And, he's going to do what he wants to do, which is cool. And it's also why he's good in the field. So, it's a great question. We'll find out, I guess.
Yeah. Let's talk about another goalkeeper that's a little bit outside of the national team radar. Has been called into camps, and I think is still definitely very much in the mix. Although I think personally, right now, I think Vlatko's got his 3 potentially already set for next year for the World Cup. But I think she's definitely fighting and if she's not 3, she's 4. She's really up there. I'd say Fallon Tullis-Joyce also is very much in that mix right there too. This is Bella Bixby, Portland Thorns Bella Bixby, obviously friend of the show. She's been on multiple times. I want to start with this play right here because we talk about making the right decision at the right time, and this I believe is this is early on in the game. It's like the 3rd minute against San Diego Wave. Shout out San Diego Wave. They've been phenomenal this year in NWSL for an expansion team. Just unreal. Obviously, Louis, I would say you're doing a great job with Kailyn, but let's be honest, Kailyn's Kailyn. So, Louis, you're there. But it's a great ball from about 35 out from Jodie Taylor. It's lofted in towards Alex Morgan. You could say one of the most informed forwards in the world right now. It's towards the 6. Bella comes out, no hesitation, 2-hand box under pressure, immediately engages, and still stays with the play right there. I think we talk about holding versus boxing. I think these are the types of opportunities where you're talking about boxing the ball
Yep.
and why you need to be so powerful with it.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy. I'm on Wikipedia here, so this isn't totally accurate, I'm sure. But as of end of July, she has 28 career starts in NWSL. I'm like, that's not a lot. So probably by now, what is she, like low 30s, mid 30s? That's not a lot. And she plays like she's seasoned veteran. She makes cohesive decisions. She's obviously like strong, like a truck there. She just takes the hit and whatever, no big deal for her. So she's my number 1 for the U.S. to be totally honest. I love watching her play. I think she's incredibly underrated. I hate that she's not in with the team. I think she's a fantastic.
So you put her, and again, this is your personal opinion. You put her over Alyssa and Aubrey and Casey and all that.
Yeah. I think to be fair, like a lot of it's going to come down to synergy, and I totally understand that. And I think what you see from Nair on the national team to the club side is very, very different, just because different people, and I understand that, and I understand why Nair is in with the national team because she's a very good goalkeeper. But for me, it's like Bixby's really good. And so not that there aren't other good ones, but for me, she's number 1.
So now let's move on into this right here. And, we talk about different leagues around the world. I love the fact that with NWSL and now with the WSL, there's a lot of synergy in regards to teams playing in those, ICC cups and all those sorts of things. So this is a match against Chelsea women.
Cool.
Yeah. So this is in the 15th minute. The ball's laid off to Sam Kerr at the edge of the 18. Obviously a very dangerous player. And then it's a one-time back to Sophie Ingle. Look at Bella, nice and composed. The ball comes through traffic right here. So I don't think a lot of people recognize this right here. 3 defenders right there. A lot of goalkeepers freak out in this because they lose that ball right there. But she's so composed. She recognizes she can still hold it nice and clean. Her movement is so smooth that it's a clean hold shape right there, as opposed to spilling the ball right there. And then that's a ball into the net, slotted.
Yeah, I think this is probably one of those plays people would say, well, it's a shot from like 25 or so. And like, admittedly, if that went in, I think Bixby would be disappointed. That said, I think as you're getting onto it, there's a lot of these tools that she's utilizing here, which is like, this is the kind of way we need to look at goalkeeping of it's fluid movement. It's natural. It's not as fluid as Josh, but that's not right or wrong. It's just what works for her. She looks to hold this ball, not parry it away, and she makes it look simple. She's also communicating on that backside there. She doesn't get frazzled. She doesn't like awkwardly lean around the defender to try to get a look at the ball. She just plays naturally. I think to Onger's credit up in Portland, like she's done a really good job. And I think Louis would probably also echo the sentiment of just getting out of the way. A lot of times as a coach is the best way to approach goalkeeping is when someone's playing well, like you don't need to change it. You don't need to come in and just rewrite the book, let them play. And I think this is a good example of it.
Yeah, and I love, look at that. look at the shape right there, because it's that containment of the ball as opposed to, again, how many young goalkeepers in that moment, Bill, even at the collegiate level, it's an extension of the hand right there. And they're not even thinking hold the ball. They're just thinking cover that space.
Yeah,
Boom.
yeah. Oh, yeah, and part of it, she's not dragging her back leg there, so she's able to kind of get her body weight into it. I think a lot of goalkeepers, you'll see them drag the back foot and slide it across the ground, as opposed to where she just tilts her shoulders over, which gets her body behind the ball. It lets her kind of naturally take it. You see her right foot's off the ground there. So yeah, it's good.
I love it. All right, last play I want to show here, because this is, in my opinion, very world-class. And this is in the 79th minute. Sam Kerr's dribbling at you into space. That's
no
always
biggie.
scary...
Yeah, whatever. No big deal.
That's a little scary thing. So she plays a through ball to Bethany England right here. And here's the thing right here. So England takes a touch, but Bella holds patient because she recognizes that she's got chased by defender, right? Which is forcing England to make a play. And then it's a clean hold from a high position by Bella right there. Very rarely do I see that. Very rarely do I see that.
Yeah, there's a reason why. It's really tough to do, and only really good goalkeepers are going to do that. I think it's probably the big thing that stands out to me is just the composure. You see her kind of step up at one point, then she steps back. Like, even, I don't know if I'd say like that's a mistake, but she's like changed her plan in her mind. She's starting to go forward, then she comes back. It doesn't bother her. She just gets set again, and it's not a big deal. I think you see a lot of goalkeepers not only struggle with that aspect, but also there's excess time here. There's touches, the ball gets clipped off a defender, like a lot. And when that happens, goalkeepers typically get really nervous and think, I got to go run at them. I got to go down the line. But she just plays naturally. Now, let's say it's like easier to hold the ball when it's kind of up mid-height, which is that. But at the same time, like, I think her holding it is more about the composure aspect. And also, again, you can see her get a left foot off the ground. She like naturally, and she's not even at full extension. She covers a ton of ground there, which is awesome.
Yeah.
I don't want to, hopefully, if she's listening, I don't want to, inflate her ego too much, but this is a great play. Yeah, this is awesome.
Well, one thing I love about Bella is that she's going to be the first one that's going to be nitpicking anything. I remember last time she was on the show, she would break herself down, from a certain level, which is a really high level GKIQ. And again, somebody who had to make a mark for themselves, they went overseas first. I believe she was in Germany at first. Then she came back to NWSL. She was a 3, and out of circumstance, because of, injuries in the NWSL Challenge Cup, she ended up starting. And then unfortunately she got injured. But has come back, and really solidified herself as the number 1 there.
Yeah. Let me throw one thing on here. I'll say, just being totally transparent, like, I didn't rate her too highly coming out of college. I just wasn't totally wowed by it. And I think sometimes when people see my rankings, they think, oh, this is set in stone. And it's like, I'll be honest, like, I miss, as everyone does. She, like, when she came in, what was the tournament with NWSL? What was that called?
The Challenge Cup.
Yeah.
The first one. Yeah. The pandemic one.
Yeah. And she came out and balled out. It was like, oh, it was like, okay, I missed that. I was wrong. She's obviously very good. So.
We're going to switch back to the men's game, and we're going to go a little younger right now. So the last 2 people that we saw, I think very, very much people know them. They're seasoned professionals, who are got pretty solid accolades already and are definitely national pool type players. Here's somebody that you've been ranking very highly since they were a young kid. Shout out to a great guy, great photographer, CJ Dos Santos.
Oh, good photographer! I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, good
He's a street photographer.
Okay,
you gotta join his socials. Join his socials. CJ Dos Santos Photography, dude. Shout out to CJ. Anyway, you've been ranking him since he was in the youth national team picture. Obviously, he went on to Benfica and was in the youth program over there. Then decided to make the move back to the United States to join MLS. Has predominantly been a 3 for Inter Miami, and majority of time has been spent with Inter Miami's reserve team. Before we kind of get into these highlights, why has CJ always been on your radar?
CJ's interesting to me because he's kind of like boom or bust material, which makes it really tough to really weigh in on, because he plays a very non-American style where, he went to Benfica, and so, it says enough. So for me, it's like either that high complex level of playing is going to pay off, or which I hope it doesn't. This next part, I hope it doesn't happen. But he's going to get put into a spot where Americans don't know what to do with him. And, when you have lack of synergy on the field, even if you're trying your best, like that's going to be a problem. So I've been really interested in tracking with Miami just because they're trying to really utilize his strengths and tools, whereas if you went to other places, they wouldn't. So it's kind of like he's at that bind of like, well, if it all clicks, it's going to be really cool. And then if he gets into an environment where it doesn't work out for him, like it's going to look really, really clunky and disjointed.
Now, a question for you before we go on to this clip right here, because I find this all very fascinating. For if anybody out there, knows Drake Callender. Drake Callender was also very highly rated, young goalkeeper.
Yeah.
Coming into the league out there. When you got a CJ Dos Santos and a Drake Callender, in your program, is it difficult to find the minutes to develop both of them?
It's tough because I think it's that. When you have two pretty different goalkeepers, and obviously there's more than just two at Miami, that when you've got different styles coming out, and obviously there's a general goal of keeping the ball in the net, but it takes typically more than one goalkeeper to make sure, or one goalkeeper coach to make sure that they're on track where they need to be. So what Drake needs on and off the field is probably going to be a lot different than what CJ needs on and off the field, and so kind of a goalkeeping team is really required for that. So. If you do it right, no. But if you throw minimum resources at it, then yeah, it will be a problem.
No. All right, let's go into this clip right here. So this is the 2nd minute, and I want to show this because it's a cutback inside the 18 by Alex Freeman. CJ's patient with his movement, doesn't overrun. One touch by Necer Acosta. Shot is hit a cross. CJ with the steer away from traffic. Great push off and movement to steer the ball clear. Any notes on this?
Well, if it's Bella Bixby in goal, she probably holds it, to be fair. But I think probably the first thing I noticed is the big celebration. You just don't see that much as a goalkeeper. I think that's cool. First of all, I think when I see that, that's awesome too.
The dejected forward.
Yeah, I love that. As a coach, you want goalkeepers who aren't going to be afraid of the moment, and this is arguably should be goal, and CJ says no, I'm up for it. So that's really cool. It's fluid movement. I wouldn't say that's the most difficult save in the world because that is like mid height. It's a little bit outside his body. He's got time to get over, but at the same time, like there's a reason why it doesn't look scary or clunky is because he's up for the moment. So yeah, absolutely, it's cool.
And I love the fact that you brought up the height thing because a lot of times when coaches and especially when we're talking about rankings and everything like that, people who are journalists who aren't goalkeeping people, they don't take those types of things into consideration. There's certain we know our money spots as goalkeepers. Like we're like, oh, that's the height I want because that I can make the body naturally can shape itself that way a lot easier than it can dropping low to the ground or high up top, those sorts of things. So anything within that bubble, we're very, very excited about. But that being said, a lot of times we think we become too casual about it because we're like, well, that's going to be an easy, simple movement for us right there. So I think, it's really important for a lot of young goalkeepers to hear that as well too. I want to move on to this one right here. This is a different type of play. After we get excited, there we go. Dejected Acosta.
I love it. I love that.
So this is the 85th minute against Orlando. This is a header in the box that drops to the feet of Jacqueline right here. And look at CJ. He's so focused and lined up. I love the positioning first off of his defenders. I think, obviously that one's covering the near post really well. So he's not too close to his near post right there. There's a square ball across immediately. And this is what I want to see is that immediate chase by CJ. And then when the head goes down, did you see how he stole a little bit of space right there on that preset before the big 1v1 save? Obviously, he finds the spill and pulls it away right here. So
yeah, absolutely. Again, I think this is a product of what's going on in CJ's head isn't, I need to exactly do this. Or he's not doing calculations. It's just a natural response. So there is kind of almost a zigzag movement from him, but it's all in response to the game, and he's just finding what fits for him. Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the big pluses CJ has, which goes to the shot stopping side, which helps on the American goalkeeping, when we look at him through a very American lens, is that he's incredibly mobile for being so lanky. 6'4", but he's incredibly mobile. He's very quick. Usually when you're 6'4", you can't move very well. So he makes his plays a lot of micro adjustments, what I would call.
Yep.
Could maybe also hold that with a top hand, but we'll let it slide.
I love this, and this is something that Susky always talks about right there, is when the head goes down, stealing some ground. And I'm obviously you got to be quick enough to be able to do that before, otherwise you're going to be caught still moving. But he recognizes that the second the head goes down, he's able to steal some space and get in front of post. So again, if he's a little deeper, any sort of negative movement, and that ball's in the back of the net. I just want a lot of young keepers to see that. It's like the more and more you can stay in front of post, the better off you're going to be in these scenarios. So.
Yeah, if it rhymes, it's usually pretty good advice. So that's good from Saskia there. I'd say maybe the one thing to that is if you're not 6'4", maybe don't play like you're 6'4". So, you may actually take up a different spot, whether that's farther down the line or maybe coming back in and looking to use more footwork there. I think sometimes we look at this as like, well, what is the exact spot you need to be in? And there are some outright wrong answers. If you're behind the goal, it's not good. But if you're not 6'4", don't play like you're 6'4", because it's not going to go well for you.
So last thing I want to show about CJ right here is I want to show, this is the first time I really saw anything of CJ. And this is back when he was at Benfica in the youth academy. I know what the save is, yeah. This is a famous save, I believe, in the journalism world right here. But this is against Kova Piedade. Oh, Piedade. Kova Piedade. And a player kind of gets separation, lays it into the top of the 18 where this player hits this curling ball. Again, you could say not a lot of pace on it. Again, guys, we're talking about the youth level right here. So he's probably 17 at this point, 18, something like that.
Yeah, he's not too old.
Yeah. So ball's curling, great lateral movement, great footwork. I love the tracking here and then the decision to push that away. I mean, that's a world-class save.
Yeah, I think the thing that probably a lot of keepers would not do here is the little shuffle he takes. So as the shot releases here, he moves his feet. I think it's like a step shuffle, and then he goes.
Yep.
Yeah, there it is. Yep. And so, a lot of people think if they're big, they just can automatically dive. But because that ball doesn't have immense pace, he's actually got some time to move, although the wind probably isn't helping, judging by those trees in the background. But no, that's like he has clawed a goal out of the net with that. That is a fantastic save. Absolutely.
Someone just put a good save for a 17-year-old.
Not bad. It's not bad.
Not bad. And I'm sure you can still pull those across, CJ. Even at your grizzled age of 20 now, 21.
Yeah, it's not too old. Yeah.
No. So anyway, let's move on. Speaking of that, Bill, I don't know how you're doing on time here. You good still?
Hey, I have all night to talk goalkeeping. Let's go.
All right. So this is somebody that you threw out of left field. And I was like, I think I vaguely have heard of this person. But speaking of Benfica, there's an American goalkeeper playing at Benfica right now. And not easy to find footage of her. So I'm going to go past all these people here real quick and find her. Because I find her. Okay. We found her very last minute. Here we go. Okay. It's hard to find footage of somebody when it looks like this. This is the joke was always like in the early 2000s, late 90s in the NBA draft. Whenever you wanted to find a sleeper player in the NBA draft, is like the grainier the footage, the more likely this player was going to go high in the lottery. This is Kailyn Talbert over at Benfica. Why is she so high in your rankings, and why does nobody know about her?
Well, again, it's like lack of investment resources is the ultimate answer. You're playing in, Premier League in Portugal. Like, you think that they're like videos tough to find there. And you're playing at Benfica. You'd think videos easy to find. It's not. It's very tough. Investment just as a whole has made it difficult for people to really, we have to go look at someone recording this game on a flip phone or something. Like, I don't know. It's difficult to find, good footage. On the men's side, it's any game that happens, you can go find an all players touch within 30 minutes after the game ends. But this is just tough to find video. So that's a big part of why she's not on the radar. Why she's really good is because she's, really good. She plays fearless. She doesn't look to I'm trying to say this in a way that maybe makes sense for non-goalkeepers, but she doesn't look to play to other people's standards. She just finds what fits for her. There's not situations where she gets scared or backs down from. I think we see a lot of times where, young goalkeepers get scored on and they don't even try. Like it's like she gets furious, not completely, but she plays as if she would be furious if she were to ever be scored on. It's just an immense intensity that you just don't really see on men's or women's side at any level. She just plays at a really cool way that is very American in that sense. You think it would click in more, but I think the fact that she came out of a D2 school and she just wasn't in the ascribed bubble, like it was tough to get in.
I was going to say it was very similar to Josh Cohen, who also played at D2 school at UC San Diego, and and Kailyn Talbot played at I think it was Cal State, Humboldt State, right? Humboldt State, is that where she played? I believe.
Yeah.
It was so but interesting career path going over to Benfica. Obviously a big club from a brand standpoint, and hopefully it can lead to some more opportunities for her. I want to show this because you're like, okay, well, why is this so important? Check this out. Basically, she's starting high, ball's played back to her at the edge of the 18, and she recognizes the chase to her side right here. And instead of playing that ball in front, which is what I would have thought she was going to play that ball directly. And I don't know if you can see my finger pointing, but no, you can't see my finger pointing. Anyway, across like that, she recognizes that there's danger on the inside right there. And instead she clips this ball. Dude, I never would have even seen that ball. Talk about vision and scanning the field. I mean, that's sick.
Yeah, I mean,
why is this grainy footage? This should be world-class footage, right?
She doesn't even. I don't think she has a Wikipedia page, to be totally like what Benfica player on the men's side doesn't have a Wikipedia page. So, I'd be surprised. I would not be surprised if she was never coached to do that and she just played naturally like that. I think we think of creativity as something that's got to be taught sometimes, but like it's kind of the opposite. It's just something that's there that. If you have it, you have it. It's not something that's quite necessarily given. So, I wouldn't say that's the most complex play there, to be fair, but I do like how she plays pretty efficiently. I think she surprises either her left back or left mid, whoever that is there.
Well, yeah, I see
her a little bit.
Their face. They're like, "What?
Oh, yeah, what's that?" Yeah,
I expected that ball to be right to my foot right there.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
but now they're open space. Okay, so here's more footage. By the way, speaking of how difficult it was to find, and Katie, I think I'm going to reach out to you. So if you watch this or hear this, we would love to have you on the show so that we can find some other footage of you here. But it was so hard to find footage of her. Some of the footage I found was filmed from a phone from a laptop. So it filmed the laptop.
Classic.
Yeah, filmed the laptop. So you can see like low battery or like a text message like iMessage come across.
Oh no.
Footage, and I'm like, I can't play these. I can't use these. So anyway, so this is a through ball outside the 18. She kind of recognizes it. She's already committed to coming out on this ball. Look how high she is.
Yeah.
And it's one of those situations where as a goalkeeper, like you have no choice but to win this ball. So she goes down on the slide tackle, brave and strong, and clears it out. I love a lot of young goalkeepers to see that because I personally, that's something I like doing is when I'm in a situation like that, I'll go down and clear it rather than try to stay on my feet. I've found a lot of times if I try to strike it with my feet in a situation like that, I'll either hit the ball or I'll hit it right at the player or something stupid like that will happen. Thoughts on this, Bill?
Yeah, to Katie's own admission, she hasn't been coached a whole lot as far as goalkeeping specific stuff goes. Again, really want to hammer home the idea that like this is all pretty natural from her. She knows what her strengths are and she plays with them. Just in case people might be a little confused, like she was named let me just double check on this, the player of the year in the league from last year, despite her only starting the last half. Like that's the level she got to. Like she didn't she took the starting job and then got named player of the year in the whole league. So she's very good. And she's a product of someone who hasn't been coached a whole lot, but has made it, in a way that works. She has a very early 90s kind of MLS vibe of just kind of shooting from the hip a little bit. And I think there's, times to criticize that. I'm not going to back down from that, but for the most part, she has a pretty natural positive response to the game, which is cool.
So guys, look how hard it is for me to find footage of, player of the year in Portugal.
Yes.
And the footage I found, look at this. Like this, like,
Yeah.
like whose mom shot this? Like, it's
Yeah,
like,
good question.
you know,
That's a great question. Yeah.
I mean, my
Yeah.
God. So this is an in-swinging ball towards the box. It takes a slight deflection. Katie recognizes she needs to play that out of danger, and it's an immediate push off. Good reaction and instincts just to get it out of the way right over there. Not, again, instinctual, like you're saying, not overthinking, just raw ability, Bill?
Yeah, I'd say this is a great example of there's a ways for her to be more efficient here, and this is a little dated clip, I know, but her footwork on the lead into this is a little sloppy and just like it's not high, like she's kind of slow with her feet, but I think we can see on the back end like how easy it is for her to just cover ground. I mean, that's like a huge reaction save there that you just don't really see at any level. So yeah, I think this is kind of a great product or great example of a product of lack of like efficient coaching that makes someone really efficient, but at the same time, like when you're good and you're gonna make saves. So yeah, this is not a surprise to see. Yeah, that's awesome. Like somehow her entire body is like 3 feet off the ground from like her feet to her head. It's all that's crazy that she did that.
So what would it take, you know, before we finish off with our last person right here, what would it take for her to get onto the radar of the bigger leagues?
Well, I think, yeah, it's a combo of a few things. Like playing well is the number one thing. The scouting on the bigger leagues is odd, in that it's not so much public. It's kind of who you know sort of thing. Where on the men's side, it's more public. And so a good agent is probably the number two there. But she needs to play well and be fairly well connected, because if you're not connected, you're not going anywhere. I mean, that's how she got to Benfica. It wasn't because Benfica was scouting America. It was like, you know, there's good connections. And again, she's very talented and played well. But unfortunately, on the women's side, you have to advertise and sell yourself more than on the men's side, where it'll come to you a little bit more naturally.
Well, look at Kailyn Marquis with you know the way she played in Champions League, you know, last year, and then the move to Arsenal because of her performance against Arsenal the past season, you know, made that move possible. So
yeah, it wasn't like Arsenal. Yeah, it wasn't like Arsenal was scouting every game. It was like, oh, she played against them. Oh, and then they realized, oh, she's good. Like that's the scouting there. Like they watched in game.
Yeah. They're like, oh, they scout the same way club teams do, youth club teams do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Like, oh, we played them in a showcase in San Diego. I remember them. Yeah, we should have her join. She only lives an hour from our house.
Yeah, okay. Absolutely. Yep.
Okay, here's somebody. Dude, I'm not gonna lie. I don't follow the USL Championship as well as I should. There's just only so much soccer out there. I know more of the reserve MLS teams in USL Championship, and definitely more of the West Coast teams because of the connection with Omar at Las Vegas Lights and all that sort of thing. Detroit City's Nathan Steinwasher. First off, give us his background, because I don't know much about him.
I'll be honest, I don't know much either. Unfortunately, I haven't connected with him. The reason I picked him here is because he is a fantastic example of someone who can play a little different. He's marked at 6 foot. He might be shorter, but he's not a big keeper, and he doesn't play in kind of the typical like correct way for American goalkeeping, which is awesome. And he just found what fits for him. I know he's a big Michigan guy, and he's stayed stateside for the most of his career. I believe he went to Sweden for a little bit, but he's just been a fan. I mean, if you are or know someone who's a Detroit City fan, like they love this guy. Unfortunately, he just hasn't had the upper mobility that in another country he would have had. And you know, I think the art side of it's like awesome. He's made great art. But unfortunately, like opportunities haven't quite come his way, and at 29, that door is mostly likely closed. But you know, that doesn't take away the ability and doesn't take away the skill. So I don't know a ton about his history. Unfortunately, would love to learn a little more about it. But he's a fantastic goalkeeper.
Nathan, if you're watching or listening, dude, reach out to Bill. He wants to know more about your history.
Yeah, let's go. Let's go. Yeah,
let's do it up. Okay, so this is in the 75th minute. It's Detroit versus Tampa Bay. Obviously, Tampa Bay is a pretty solid team in the USL. Outswinging ball by Lewis Hilton outside the 6. It's headed back in towards Stevan Dos Santos, towards the back post. Great tracking by Nathan right here. It takes a hop, it looks like, off the post right there. but he stays with the ball. It's great tracking, redirects the ball down, and then contains it rather than pushes it away. Again, crazy play.
Yeah,
but
weird save. Yeah.
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 Look at that.
I don't
Boom,
think
boom.
that hits the crossbar. I think he just kind of
Oh, it
weirdly
doesn't?
palms it. I think he just gets his hand on it, and then I don't know how to do this in frame, but like just kind of cradles it down. I think he just
Oh
cradles
my
it down.
gosh.
It's a weird play. And again, like I think you can look at this and you can critique it. I get it, but like the reality is like this is a weird hit. You know, like you gotta improv the moment. You can't really train this moment real well. And he found a solution. So like, and again, it's natural. It's a good response. You can tell he's not thinking two different decisions. It's one decision. Is it something you'd recommend or try yourself? Probably not. But like, keeps the ball out of the net. And like that, like again, this is actually like a perfect. I'm glad you pulled this up. I hadn't seen this, but this is like really a big summation of his career. It's like he's just doing stuff his way and it works. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and what I love about this too is that just it's being effective because that ball is on the line. And if he tries to maybe tip it, maybe he tips it into the goal. Again, you said he's not the biggest goalkeeper in the world. If he tries to fling it wide, maybe he hits it to a player. And so he's like, I need to just bring it down, redirect it so that I can control the ball. And it's just big time right there. Shout out to you, Nathan, right here. Okay, now I want to show distribution here because this is, dude, this is a kind of ball that you know, not a lot of people have the ice water in their veins to hit these types of balls right here. Yeah. This is a 43rd minute against Omar's Las Vegas Lights.
Sorry, Omar.
But Nathan dribbles the ball to the top of the 18 and then recognizes a matchup advantage right here. And that's when he just plays a driven ball outside to the wing. Dude, that is a very ballsy maneuver right there because so many things could go wrong right there with the height of that ball, how it's driven, all of that. So why did he play this ball, Bill?
I think because he wanted to is probably the answer. I mean, like I will say this type of clip isn't like totally uncommon. I think the way he hits it is kind of odd because it doesn't get that much height. He drives it, which is kind of an odd way to hit that ball. You can see like how much over he is. He almost hits it like he's shooting on goal. You know, like the way he, it's a very odd hit. But you can tell he's done it before and he's confident. I think there's probably a lot of trust in the team on that. You don't just hit that ball to anyone. So I mean, you'd have to ask him as far like, and again, like I'm not gonna have a lot of good answers on total insight on this, but that's why he stands out to me because he's playing his style, and I think that's something that gets lost for a lot of young goalkeepers is like trying to figure out what works for you, and is it going to be drastically different? Are you going to be saving shots with your face? Hopefully not, but like finding these little things that like work for you in little pockets, like absolutely, this is cool.
Yeah. So I love that. Boom, boom, boom.
That ball doesn't go higher than like 10 feet. That's a really
that's
low
the craziest thing.
Ball that goes 60 yards.
Yeah. So, and then the final clip of his, this is against Jake Davis's old Hartford Athletic, I believe is the name of the USL team, I think.
Yep.
I hope that's what it is. It's 29th minute. It's laid off to Andre Lewis, who plays an in-swinging ball deep into the box, and 5'11" Nathan comes right out on this ball. It's got a lot of height, obviously, but it's a mess in traffic right there. And he holds this ball, highest point, clean, and comes down with it right there. Again, a lot of smaller goalkeepers box that ball.
Yeah,
and sometimes box it poorly.
Also, just one thing to point out, he doesn't drive his knee. It's like a very basketball rebound here. He just gets under and goes up. Do you recommend that as coach? Probably not. He's actually going backwards a little bit. But like he knew he was going to get it, and like the end of story. No problem there. So this kind of goalkeeping spirit he has about himself, like it's awesome. It's a lot of fun to watch. I wish this is something we encouraged more often. But yeah, this is all three clips are pretty atypical as far as quote unquote textbook decisions. But yeah, it's he's the shortest guy in the field maybe, and he's pulling that in. I shouldn't be dogging it. He's just shorter people in the field. And the way he throws that ball, look how he threw that ball. It's like he like flicks his wrist and he's getting backspin on the ball to get that ball to like bounce slower to the ground. He could have bowled it, but he didn't.
Yeah.
Like he's just everything that's ever been done with goalkeeping. He's thought, okay, that's been done. I'm just going to do it a slightly different way. It's awesome. I love watching him play.
All right. Do you have time to go through Emmy or
I have all night for you.
Okay. All right. So Last person we're going to do right here. This is Emmy Allen, who is, I think, our only college goalkeeper that I believe that we've got.
That's correct. CJ is college age, to be fair, but yeah.
True. But he's he's in the professional level. So first off, why Emmy Allen? Why North Carolina? Why a college keeper?
Well, I don't know if I can swear on the podcast, but it's because she's badass. I mean, she's really good in goal. That's the answer. The college from like men and women's obviously different because like playing for UNC on the women's side is like, that's a pretty high, like you could argue it's a professional level minus the pay. So she's very, very good. I think there is a strong case that she's the best goalkeeper in college soccer, and she's a redshirt freshman. I'm pretty sure. And she is splitting time right now with another very good goalkeeper at UNC, Mars Josephson, excuse me. Is also a fantastic goalkeeper. Mars made probably the save of the year earlier in the year. She's in a great environment, plays well, is going to be good. Good chance she'll play on the national team. Like she's very, very good.
So here's a question right here in the crowd right here from Patrick Leopold, and he goes, do you think any of these players have a chance to make a friendly roster with the women's national team for the England and Spain matches coming up? I'm going to expand that. Maybe any players that we haven't even covered that you think might be surprise inclusions on those rosters?
I'm going to lean no. I mean, I guess there's always a chance. So it's like the whole what's the Jim Carrey Dumb and Dumber? Like, so you're saying there's a chance. But I think there's a chance. I don't think it's likely. I think at this point going forward, and similar with the men's team a year ago, like they're trying to figure out who the core is and not trying to. I mean, they're not trying to give like chances to dark horses essentially, and they're trying to figure out who they want. And they're siphoning down the pool. So I mean, I guess there's a chance, but I wouldn't hold my breath about it.
Okay. And then this last question, and guys, if you have any more questions, feel free to throw them in there. If we don't get to them, engage on the Union app, subscribe if you're not on there yet. We'll throw up the link up here, but get on there and we'll try to answer them over there. That's probably the best way to go about it. This one comes from Matt Phillips, and he goes, are the increasing popular video camera systems like VO beneficial for youth goalkeepers to study their gameplay action and get noticed as they get older?
I feel like Matthew Phillips might work for VO. It's an odd question a little bit, but assuming that he doesn't, I mean, in a general sense, I don't know why it has to be VO, but any like recording of a video is good. I
think he was just trying to like give an example, like for that people would understand like what type of cameras he's talking about. So,
well, yeah, I mean, cameras have been around for a while. I don't know, whatever. It's not a big deal. Looking at video is good. I mean, at the end of the day, if it's helpful, it's helpful. So like if you're watching video and it makes you feel terrible, it's making you play worse, and it's taking you away from it, and the whole paralysis by analysis thing, that's not good. We don't need that. But goalkeepers do have a hard time knowing what they look like in goal, and because they're worried about what's in front of them. So whatever recording system you want, whether it's VO or another recording system, of which there are many, I think that's not a bad route to consider, but just be mindful if it's hurting you, then don't do it, obviously. But if it helps, it helps.
Okay, so let's move on to this. So now this is Emmy. This is an in-swinging ball that takes a slight deflection. Oh no, sorry. Actually, no. Oops. Does it take a slight deflection? Oh no, sorry. This different play.
Just hits it weird, yeah.
Yeah. So this is a corner kick. It's in-swinging towards the near post. Emmy recognizes she can't get her hands clean to it, but she does a one-hand box away from that. So ball comes in. Can't get a full hold on that
ball on it. I think you can tell him he's thinking the ball's gonna. I'm guessing, but it looks like she thinks the ball's gonna go a little bit farther, but it dips a little bit there. Clean play. Her teammate actually might head that away as well. I can't quite tell, but I mean, it's a corner play. I like that she gets sit back in. I know there's traffic in there, so it's good. Yeah,
actually, you're right. So once she clears out, she sits back in position. So
she's ready.
She's ready for that recovery. All right. So now I want to play this ball right over here. So this is in the 29th minute against UCLA. Madeline DeCiano plays a long through ball into space. Emmy calls for it. So calls off her teammates right there, is patient about it. And instead of playing this square ball right here, she recognizes there's danger on the chase right there by the UCLA player, scans, waits for the right moment, and then plays a simple, clean ball right through right there. I think this is great for young goalkeepers to see because it's that awareness, that patience, recognizing no reason to rush here. Thoughts?
Yeah, I think we go back to that upper 90 save by CJ, and is Emmy gonna put this play in her highlight tape? Probably not. But think about like if you're Emmy's teammate right now and you watch your goalkeeper like handle this play, where there's a few things goalkeepers do that just exude confidence and calm the game down, and like to trap the ball like that, to be like, this is so easy, I can kind of hot dog the play a little bit because I'm so confident. And she's also thinking of like, she recognizes the lack of pressure on the left side. So she just says, okay, well, we're just going to go back up here. And like, she's got 50 yards to play unless there's a foul. Maybe they're almost playing like they stopped for some reason. But yeah, there's a few things goalkeepers can do. I'd say another one is like whenever a goalkeeper palms it with one hand, it's just walking with the ball in one hand while it's live. There's just a few things goalkeepers do that's like, wow, they're doing that. Like they're legit. And so this is a very, very small thing. Again, this is not going to highlight tape, but I love that little like trap. It's just like, yeah, I'm just going to trap it like this because I can.
Yeah,
I love that.
And one of the reasons I chose this is because I don't want every single highlight that we show about why these keepers are keepers to watch to be something that is a big time action movement, because a lot of the times the reasons these are goalkeepers to watch is because of things like this, and then whether how much of this is mental, how much of it is tactical, how much of it is physical, it's kind of wrapped up all the way through. All right, last play I want to show right here, and this is right up the alley of Saskia's heart. I believe there's like 6 minutes left to go in the first half against UCLA. It's a slip ball between two defenders. And then it's Ali Cook is oncoming this ball, and Emmy has made the decision she's coming for that ball, and she's winning that ball. Covers all this ground, goes down on the smother, and holds onto it clean. Again, a lot of young goalkeepers aren't willing to be brave enough right there, or they lose focus and they start looking at Ali Cook right there. And that's when the disaster happens, where she either slots it across her or she spills the ball, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah. Can you play that one more time where
Sure.
It's just in play there?
Sure.
Yeah. So these plays are a little tricky because like I think people think, oh, keep a high line, but like she can clip that in over her. I'd say that maybe the one thing I'd maybe criticize just from a safety standpoint, it almost seems like her right elbow gets a little high, which like opens. I think maybe that's why she stays down a little bit after the play. Like, that from a safety standpoint, I can't quite tell from this angle. Keepers, if you're going out, you want to get the ball, obviously, but you don't want to open your body too big because you don't want to just get ran into as much as possible. You want to protect yourself. So I think she might have got clipped in the elbow there. That's a great decision. Her positioning is really good on the play. She's not too high where she can get chipped, but she's ready for that through ball. Defenders maybe not doing their job at the end of the day. But yeah, this is a good play from Emmy. I love this.
Cool. Oof. And I hope she was okay.
Like
hope she was okay after that. That is tough.
She may just be time wasting a little bit at the end, so that's fine.
Well, that was a ferocious game, I believe. And both teams are looking very, very solid at the start of this this college season. I guess it's not even the start anymore. I guess we're midway through now, Bill.
Not quite midway. We're getting a conference play, so I guess in some sense that's midway, but I think we're a few games short of midway.
Yeah. Well, Bill, dude, honestly, thanks for sharing all this. Before we wrap up right here, if there's any goalkeepers that we didn't, obviously there's a lot of goalkeepers out there that we didn't get to cover, and we only have so much time. Are there any other names that you think we should watch out for on the men or women's side?
I mean, I can go through all of them, so it's tough for me. If I try to start naming them, I'm probably going to start blanking. I'd say just in general sense, like, there's a lot of good goalkeepers that are off the radar, and just because someone somewhere doesn't, or vice versa, if they're just because they're at a good place or a bad place doesn't inherently mean they are that. So I'd like to see a little bit more analysis and thought behind that. But basically, yeah, I'd say, if you can, if there's one thing I'd say for people to check out, it's probably VO. That's probably the one thing that's a paid sponsor for our show today, I think is what happened there. Thank you, Matthew Phillips, on that one. But no, I don't know. I love watching all the goalkeepers. They're fun for me. So I think you look at Nathan, for example, like, is he going to make MLS? Probably not. Odds on, probably not. But like, man, it's so refreshing and fun to watch. It just opens up doors. So kind of depends what you're looking for, but yeah, no, this is fun going through all the goalkeepers. I really enjoy it.
Yeah. And guys, if you want to go and you want to be engaging and you want to be communicating with all sorts of other goalkeepers, goalkeeper coaches, parents, players, join the free Union Soccer community on all platforms, guys. That is a smart link right there. It's in the comments section. It's in our show notes. It is free. Subscribe today. Start posting your own content. Start engaging and talking to other people, all sorts of cool stuff. We have webinars, we have e-courses, all sorts of cool things that you can get involved with, guys. Make sure you are checking that out. And we are featuring a lot of you guys when we think something is relevant or beneficial, like Jake Davis, who posted a really cool clip on there. And we said, you know what, we need to share this on our Instagram. So we shared it on our Instagram. So shout out to people like that who've been sharing like that. Bill, if people want to connect with you, is Everybody Soccer, is that the best place to do it?
Yeah, Twitter's probably the main thing. That's Let's All Soccer. If you just search Bill Reno or Everybody Soccer, you'll find it on Twitter. It's not that I don't understand Instagram. I'm just confused why people are on it. That's probably my big thing, but I guess I kind of get it. Technically on that, hardly ever check it. And then of course the website is Everybody Soccer. So you can. It's not too hard to find me somewhere. So.
And if you guys, if you want to get into those riveting debates with Bill, you can do so on those places, or you can. I think you've got a Union profile. You could DM him there.
I'm all over. Yeah, come tell me I'm wrong. I mean, I love talking goalkeepers. I don't care if you're saying I'm right or wrong. I just want to talk goalkeepers. So, come find me.
And remember, guys, if you want to reach out to us, contact at insidethe18media.com or at Goalkeeper Podcast on all socials. If you have a guest suggestion or topic suggestion, start DMing us, guys, on the Union. We are checking those consistently. We get a lot of DMs on Instagram, and it's really hard to get to all of them. So your best bet is to do it on the Union, because we're trying to really start those conversations there. And if you're DMing on Instagram, we're going to tell you to reach out to us on the Union. So that's the best place to do it, guys. That's all the time on Inside the 18, and we are out. Later, guys.